You can start with that. Okay. Man, how long do you have?
How do you define urban design?
Urban design is almost a state of mind in that the practitioners I was working with really had a similar way of looking at the built environment and wanting to repair the built environment, looking at it through a framework systems, for example, from a lens of mobility and open space and land use.
Definitely lands somewhere between architecture and planning. And for me, that's really what urban design is. It's not, there are a lot of architects who do urban design, but they're very, very focused just on the formal aspects.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, it's much more than that.
What are the key differences between urban design, urban planning, and architecture?
So I see urban design as sort of the intermediary between planning and architecture. When you get to urban design, you're kind of at the in-between state between planning, which is highly regulatory, and architecture, which is very detailed and technical. And so urban design really is about taking these plans and visions and really thinking about parts of a city and how do those plans and visions land in those parts of the city, and how do you create the frameworks and site-specific regulations.
Not all architects, but I would say most architects that I've encountered over the years are very focused on design, um, buildings, the shape of buildings, the materiality of buildings. I think planning generally is much more comprehensive in its view of the world, sometimes not even considering the design, which I think is a mistake. I think more planners should care about design.
What are the differences in working in the public versus private sector?
Most of my background is in local government planning and urban design. And the last 4 years I've spent in private consulting as an urban designer. And I would say the key difference for me was when I worked in local government that I would be given maybe one or two projects at a time, and you're touching every aspect of that project. Whereas on the private side, I feel like, for example, now I'm probably working on 5 or 6 different projects, all at different stages in their development, but I'm able to go outside of a singular geography, which is where you would typically operate as a local government planner, and work all across North America.
I mean, the big difference is when you work for a city, you really get to know that city in a way that as a consultant, working in private practice, you never really have that luxury of being able to really immerse yourself in one place and really getting to know that place. Other people that I've talked to that have worked for the city say the same thing, that it's in many ways the most satisfying part of my career, because the mission is genuine. The private sector, you have clients, you have often developers that you're working with that, again, there's a range in what they care about, but generally care more about profit than design, than what is necessarily the best thing for a city. But the flip side is in the private sector, you really can own a project in a way that you don't really when you work for a city.
What is equitable planning and how can urban design promote equity?
So equitable planning is really when you're in the process of planning that you're really thinking about the marginalized communities, communities that have been historically disenfranchised or disinvested in, and you're thinking about what their needs are. And you're really putting their needs at the forefront of the planning process. The way urban design works within that, or I call it equitable urban design, is that you continue to keep the most marginalized voices at the forefront of the process of crafting ideas around the public realm, of crafting guidelines for future design, of establishing the vision, the aesthetic vision of a place and a space.
What are some spaces that showcase equitable urban design?
So I think about the Brooklyn Museum. It used to be this grand stairs that led up to sort of like these classical columns, and it felt very intimidating. to visit that space. And they sort of wanted to open up their museum to make it feel more welcoming to the surrounding community. And so what they did was they transformed the front of their building and made it more into a plaza. I think what it also has done is it's humanized the art experience, or the experience of viewing art, that it's not just for the elite, that it can be art for anyone.
What advice can you give to anybody interested in urban design?
Take as many classes as you can. Take a studio if you can fit it in, if it's offered, and really get that experience, because frankly, that's how you learn it best anyway, is just by doing it. Another bit of advice that I give, again, even to the non-designer planners, is to sketch, to use the ability to sketch, and you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be a professional, but the power of the sketch, particularly in urban design, to describe the character or sense of place in a way that's not too specific, is really still incredibly important.
One piece of advice to any future urban designers is find your passion in what you're doing and cultivate that. Pursue thought leadership in the field. Put yourself out there to do presentations at a conference, write a blog article, but don't be afraid to engage with others in the field and learn from them.